Now, we are continuing. We're looking at God said to love one another, and then he said, "A new commandment I give you, that you love one another." It's not a new commandment. That's not a new commandment. Love one another is from the Old Testament to the New Testament. He told us to love him with all our heart, mind, soul, and strength. And then he added your neighbor as yourself. And yet just before he leaves the earth, he says, this is the newest and the greatest and the most important thing I can say to you, a new commandment, that you love one another. Come on, Jesus, read the Bible. It's not new. And it wasn't new. Until, thank you, he added the phrase, the way I have loved you. Uh-oh. As long as I get to define what love is, I'm doing fine. But he defined the quality that he wants us to experience with each other and to experience with him. And so he set a expectation so high that unless you walk with Jesus, you can't love like Jesus. Who made this stuff up? Oh yeah, Jesus, that's right. He said, this is the way that you love. So we're going to look at, now, we're switching our focus a little bit. And for the next few weeks, the thought is, he's watching you. Now, when we always think of God watching us, what's going through our mind? Oops. He's watching you. But that's not from the owner's manual. That's from your mother who told you if you take that cookie, God's going to get you. The Bible does say he's watching you. But he's watching you. In the Old Testament, it says, in the older part of the book, before Jesus was on the face of the earth, it says he's watching you, and he's looking. You made it this Sunday, treatment and all. Good to have you. Yes, you. He's looking for you to do it right. In the Old Testament, it says his eyes go to and fro across the face of the whole earth, and what's he looking for? He's looking for people who are wholehearted towards him so he can bless them. He's looking for people who get this love thing so he can bless them. He's looking for people who love the Lord their God with all their heart, mind, soul, strength, and their neighbors. He's watching you to see if you've got this last and greatest commandment that he gave you before he left. He's looking, he got it. Why? Because that puts you in a place where he can really bless you. Now, how do we flesh this out? We're going to move from an undergraduate degree to the master's degree. It'll come to you. Master's degree. Oh, yeah, okay. On love. We are going to become black belt in loving. We are going to become world-class lovers if we do it Jesus' way. Love as I have loved you. Now, the deal with that is, it's easy to love loving people, right? My wife is a sweetheart, easygoing. We haven't had an argument. We haven't yelled. Our kids have not heard us with an elevated voice in our house in 40 years. It just doesn't happen. And I would like to take the credit for that. It wasn't a joke. I would like to take the credit for that. Yeah, but I can't. Why? Who would yell at a sweet thing like that? It's easy to love loving people. Are you with me? Now, how about what we call VDPs? Very draining people. And how do you love difficult people in your life? Okay, does that still apply, Jesus, or do I get a pass? And you know, We don't get a pass. What kind of VDPs are there in your life? Very draining people. Well, there's difficult people. There are demanding people. There's disappointing people. And there's flat-out destructive people. Let me just give you a quick synopsis. Then we'll look at how Jesus wants us to move and love each of these people. Difficult people. He wants us to love all of these people in a way that's best for them and in a way that is honoring to God. You can love people in a way that's not best for them. You with me? You ever see a spoiled child? They were probably loved in a way that was not best for them. But there is a way to love these VDPs in a way that's best for them and honoring to God. VDPs, you know them. They're hard to get along with. They're unpleasant. They're cranky. Crazy makers. They could have some personality defects, or just social skills could be lacking a little bit. But the common factor a difficult person has is they're just flat out rude. Okay, how do you get along with obnoxious people? We said loving people were easy. Obnoxious people, not so much. Second type of VDP we talked about was the demanding people. They have an agenda, they're aggressive, they're pushing. And when you get done, even a brief encounter with one of these people, you feel like you've just been manipulated, folded, bent, and stapled. But pushy people expect perfection out of you beyond your ability to produce it. Third kind is disappointing people. They're often well-intentioned, and in fact, sometimes they're actually well-intentioned. They really want to help. They just keep disappointing, breaking promises. It can get real serious. As far as unfaithful, it can go that far. And the fourth kind of VDP is destructive people. These guys intend. Their intent is malicious. So how do you get along with this? And Jesus, it's not as if he didn't deal with malicious people. I think they killed him, come to think of it. He had experience in this stuff. He had experience in all of these. And he wants us to love the way he loved. So he lived the life. He gave the example. Then he says, do as I did. How do we respond in love to each of these groups? All right. Our verse this morning, let's take out the insert. And there it is. Now, in that verse, there are four things we're going to look at that Jesus teaches us about how do you get along with these VDPs. And, Jim, you're not allowed to kill them, okay? That's out. No, you have to learn to get along with them, okay? So take your note paper out. Doing physical damage to a VDP is not allowed in your faith, okay? You have to join ISIS or something like that. But in Christianity, you have to learn a whole new way to get along with VDPs. Would you read this verse with me? I know it's funny, and the person beside you is scared to hear your voice, and so are you, but humor me. Read it with me. Love is not rude. Love does not demand its own way. Love is not irritable. And love keeps no record of when it has been wronged. Now, there's four things in there we're going to look at and apply them to these people and see if it helps us love these difficult people in a way that's best for them and honors God. First type, very draining person, is got it right here in my notes. The very draining person is that person we talked about who's the difficult person. The difficult person. Now, there's a lot of them, so you get to practice this a lot. Here's the truth. Here's the truth. Do you know that God loves you just the way you are? But you also know he loves you too much to leave you where you are. You need to look at that difficult person in your life. God is working on you to take it up to a higher level. He wants you to move from just sort of going through the motions to actually learning how to love the way he did. Love as I have loved you. He wants you to know you may have been a difficult person and he loved you. Now he will put a difficult person in your life, and he says, try this. This will make your life better if you master this type of thing. Now the world, would you say, it's fair to say, it's increasingly rude? People who wait on people are telling me over and over again, there is a quality of aggressive rudeness that is emerging that's just alarming. And we are the salt of the earth. Now let me try something on you. You will notice we don't rail against politicians and stuff like that in here. Why? Because the reason our country is in the mess that it's in is not because of the politicians. It is not because Satan is getting the upper hand. It is not because any reason other than you and I. Come on, let's stick to the Bible. Let's say the truth. When you yell about the state of our country and then look at a politician, you have left the biblical stance. How do we return law and order to the land? How do we return this country to a God-fearing country? You know it. It's in your Bible. You tell me. How do we do it? And who's responsible? Tell me. Go ahead. We what? We are responsible? Yes. And how do we get that change about other than... I think I'm going to get it. If my people who are called by my name will humble themselves, not humble their politicians. If my people who are called by my name will humble themselves and confess their politicians' sins, oh no. If my people who are called by my name will humble themselves and confess their sins, I will heal the land. Who are the two players in the mess our country's in? Come on, let's just be honest here. We're talking about truth and talking about speaking the truth in love. So the groundwork is, if we get these teachings of Jesus Christ, we get the blessings of Jesus Christ. If we, the Church of Jesus Christ, leave the teachings of Jesus Christ, we are not eligible for the blessings of Jesus Christ. That is personally, that is corporately, that is nationally. We are responsible. We are the salt of the earth. But if the salt has lost its saltiness, who can flavor the world? Jesus is, and you can't do anything about anybody but you. And we can't do anything about anybody but this community. And we can make this community a salty flavor place in Lee County that savors the whole area. And a little bit of salt will go a long way. That's why I use it by the pound on my steak. Flavor! You know, people who don't use salt, when they put it on meat, they say, it tastes salty. People who don't use salt say, it tastes bland without salt. I don't understand it, but you're salt. So we control the destiny of the country according to God. You watch the Old Testament, and Israel would leave the teachings of God, and they would be cursed. And when did God step in and rescue them? When the politicians confessed to God that they were wrong? When did God step in, rescue them, and bless them? When did that happen? When the church prayed, when the church confessed, when the church returned to God, then God moved. You and I need to live a life in obedience to God so that He can move in our life, in our body, and in our community, and in our country. That's what's resting on you and I following Jesus Christ. And what is the teaching that's most important? It's this one. Jesus says this is the one on which it all hinges. You don't want to read the Old Testament? I don't blame you. He begat, who begat, forgot who got, begat. Love God with all your heart, all your mind, all your soul, all your strength, and love your neighbor as yourself, you've got it. That's all it's saying. That's all it's saying. And in the New Testament it says, if you have love against such thing, there is no law. It says if you get this that Jesus is teaching, you don't need a law. You will do it instinctively. You will obey the teachings of Jesus Christ because you have this. Now, you and I can change the world. Who said that? Jesus said that. Jesus said, if you'll follow me, I will change the world. It's not really right to say you and I can change the world. We can't even change our spouse. But anyways, but if you follow me, Jesus said, I'll change the world. So guys, let's have fun. Let's be masters of lovers. Let's live a life that Jesus can use to change the world. And he says, this is the number one lesson. So if we learn how to love these difficult people, then we stand above the crowd, the world, the culture, Satan's creation, and shine so brightly and flavor so sharply that it becomes evident that God is on the earth. That's what he's teaching us. Now, how do you answer? Proverbs says that answering before listening is both stupid and rude. Oh, I love the King James. You were never sure what it was saying. They get it into these new translations, and oh, man, that's not hard to understand. Okay, listen. And the other thing is you listen to a rude person, and he may have a point. Just throwing that out there. Stop being bitter and angry at each other. Don't yell at each other or curse each other or ever be rude. Instead, be kind, merciful, and forgiving. Forgive others just, why do they keep putting this in? Just as God forgave you. Rudeness is a weak man's imitation of strength. Hoffer said that, Eric Hoffer. And so when we're rude or when we curse, we are just saying we don't have a good command of the language. Now, so what do we do? What do we do? God rescued you because he loved you and because you have potential. You love that commercial? Pinocchio? The difference here is God plus you is a majority in any situation. And he rescued you, filled you, claimed you as his child, so that he could bless you, adopt you, protect you, and change the world through you. So he saw a future in you. He saw where you were. Admit it. Some of us, when Jesus found us, was not doing that good. Myself excluded. But what did he see in you? He saw your future. He saw your potential. He saw who you could be. So when you say to someone, you are a stupid nincompoop, it may be true, but what have you done? You've confirmed a reality rather than given them hope and a future. You can say, you have so much more to offer. I know what lies in you. I saw that. But you know what else I see? I see you winning, overcoming. I see you turning this around. That's how Christians talk to people, is you acknowledge their future the same way Jesus did. When Jesus rescued me, I don't know why he did, but anyways, it wasn't what I was doing that made me valuable. He must have had something else in mind, and so he said, come to me and I'm going to make your life worth something. Because right now, it's not. Wise, mature person is known for his understanding, which is wisdom. Understanding is wisdom. And you as a follower of Jesus Christ, Come on now. Take this up. You, as a follower of Jesus Christ, because you have the wisdom which comes from God's perspective, wisdom and understanding, the more pleasant his words, the more persuasive he is. Now, here's a saying. I don't think we put this in the bulletin, did we? But the saying is, you'll never be persuasive by being abrasive. Keep moving, David. Don't linger. Okay, now, let me just tie it up with a little story. And this actually is a true story. It was, these kids were playing Little League ball. And if anything's going to embarrass Jesus Christ, it's one of his kids at a little league ball game. But anyways, the team took a whooping, and this young kid is now a pastor. But anyways, one of the opposing pitchers come up to him and just said, "Your team sucks. We just kicked your butt." And how did the kid respond? He said, "You pitched a great game today." Yeah. Jesus says, come on, stick with me on this thought. You can't hate and win. Look at what's going on in the Middle East. That's a full-blown hate in action. You kill one, I'll kill 10. You kill 10, I'll kill 100. You kill 100, I'll kill 1,000. You kill 1,000, I'll kill 10,000. That is not God's plan. God's plan is, you pitched a great game. That's love in action. You see, Jesus wants us to implement his teachings and change the world. We talked about the second group, which is demanding people. Your attitude should be the same as Jesus Christ had. Though he was God, he didn't demand and cling to his rights as God. He made himself nothing. He took on the humble position of a slave and appeared in human form. That's what we were talking about on Wednesday in our small group, which is he did not come to earth with any trappings of social status. He was God. So if I'm going to talk to a demanding person, I must be understanding, not demanding. That's the blanks that are there. I must be understanding, not demanding. What happens when you get two demanding people with their face 6 inches from each other? I'll let you finish that. All right. Here's your homework this week. Even this afternoon, respect those. If you go to a restaurant or any place you're served, respect them and be grateful. And so few people are respectful. We said that there's a rudeness epidemic, but the followers of Jesus Christ should be an epidemic of love, random acts of kindness happening all over the place. Be understanding, not demanding. Now, how do you do that with a demanding person? It's the 3 B's. And here they are. Got a pen? When someone gets in my face, what am I watching? The natural tendency is your blood fills up with hormones, and you're about to go off, except that in my case, because of my personality, I don't equal their aggression. I multiply it and return it. You only think you're going to make my life miserable. Let me introduce you to new and exotic interest levels of uncomfortable. That's my natural reaction. But here is the reaction, is to notice this is pretty important to this person. They're really wound about this. You with me? Rather than reacting to the action, the 3 B's come in. What is going on here? And I can cut my reaction by 90%. There's still a little emphasis on the syllables sometimes as it comes out, but you look at their backgrounds, what is causing this? They may have been brought up in a very difficult circumstance. What battles are they facing right now? What's going on in their life? And what burdens are they carrying? Sometimes people are just maxed out, and that was the last straw. And so you have to be understanding and not demanding. The 3 B's, their background, their burdens, and their battles. And look at it like that. Now, okay, so what? I become a doormat? Jesus says, give these people whatever they want. No, there's another thing in there you need to write down, and it's be tender without surrender. Be tender without surrender. You can hold the line on things that have to be held without being rough and tough. If stuff has to be done, it just got to be done. No reason getting your knickers in a knot. It's got to be done. And Jesus never caved in to manipulators. Never. And yet, he's known as the example of love that we're to follow. Third is disappointing people. What do you do with disappointing people? And you're going to be disappointed. Hang around here and I'll disappoint you. Your family, your friends, your parents, your sisters. Why? We're just not perfect. I mean, even when we try to be good, it could happen. We just aren't perfect enough. Jesus says it's going to happen. So the fact that it's going to happen is not an issue. The issue is, how are you going to react when people disappoint you? And here it is. You have to be gentle, not judgmental. You have to be gentle, not judgmental. When we react, brothers and sisters, if someone in your group does something wrong, and in my translation it says, if somebody in your group does something wrong, especially your pastor, you who are spiritual, you should go to that person and gently help him make it right again. But be careful, because you might be tempted to sin too. There's a gentleness of faith which is not chaotic, but still gets it done. You've been following along in the relationship principles of Jesus if you bought that book. And in there it talks about being gentle, not judgmental. Bear with each other. Forgive whatever grievances you have against each other. Forgive as the Lord forgive. Why do they keep sticking that in there? Each of us will give an account of himself to God. Every time you see a therefore in the Bible, you have to look and see what it's there for, okay? Every time there's a therefore in the Bible, see what it is there for. So here it says, each of us, I have to give an account to God, you have to give an account to God, and then they stick this therefore in there. Stop passing judgment on each other. What does that mean? I got it, I can handle it. I don't need your help. I will be. In one place, he's talking to Job, and they're moaning about something, and he says, I'm the judge of all the earth. You don't think I'm going to do right? Yeah, I know you will, but I'll help you with this one. No, we don't judge. Bear each other's grievances. And I don't want to be judgmental, but that doesn't mean we become a victim. There's a difference between using good judgment and being judgmental. Fourth aspect of love is dealing with destructive people. These guys, and I don't know, have you ever run into people who are keeping your life in chaos? They're changing rules. If you go along a certain way and you figure out what they want, they'll change what it is that keeps peace. Okay? Also, and they set you up. In other words, all of a sudden they get really nice, and when that happens with one of these people, they are setting you up because all hell's about to break loose. And the reason they're being nice is for you to let your guard down because it's coming. Very destructive people. There's something inside them that got hurt. Now, something inside of them that is causing, it's almost as if they're not a real person if they don't get to cause confusion in other people's lives. Does that make sense? Okay, so follower of Jesus Christ. And again, you can't shoot them. It's out. You have to figure out another way. They're manipulative. Here's 3 things to remember. Number 1, when we get into this, we do 2 things, actually. We remember it. We remember what they did. Number 2, we retaliate. And number 3, we repeat it. This, I should have put notes in here. A place for you to write this down. When it comes to repeating it, there's 3 places we repeat offenses that have happened to us. We repeat them emotionally in our mind. We repeat them relationally, and they come up as a weapon. And we repeat it practically, verbally, and tell others. Resentment, when we rehearse this in our mind, is self-destructive. It's called emotional suicide. You cannot function and rehearse past hurts. Second of all, we repeat it in fights. It uses a wedge. How much time we got? Oh, okay. Third, we repeat it. God hates gossip. If you're not talking to the person involved or God, you're gossiping. All right. Don't repeat it, delete it. Love keeps no record of wrongs. Simple. And again, study after study after study. What you rehearse, you become. I don't know why science just doesn't open this thing up and study it. It's right here. What you rehearse, you become. You have no idea how many times I have heard someone say, I'm not marrying an alcoholic. My dad was a drunk. I'm not going to marry a drunk. First person they work marry is an alcoholic. You're going, or they came from an abusive relationship. What's the first thing they go out? They go out and have a relationship with an abuser. The cost of not doing life God's way is so high. It is so high. Here's the concept that Jesus is teaching us. You become what you focus on. So we've said when a person is in difficulty, you don't focus on the past, you focus on the future. You focus on the good that can come. You don't focus on your past. And some of you have had terrible upbringings. I know that. It's terrible. And some of you have been treated very, very unfair. But if we don't follow this teachings of Jesus, and if we stay focused on it, repeating it in any way, emotionally, verbally, and we don't get it behind us, we become it. We become it. Love keeps no record of wrongs. Proverbs, if you're going along in your study with us, Proverbs says, love forgets mistakes. All right. Now, here's how you break free. Whenever you stand praying, if you have anything against anyone, in other words, you're having a moment with God, and something that's getting between you and God comes to mind. Let it go. Leave it. Stop your relationship with everybody and get that thing corrected and move on. Now, we're running out of time, but it doesn't mean that you have to, it says honor your father and mother, and some of you had difficult parents. It doesn't mean that you have to honor their sins or honor their abuse, or their poor decisions or their selfishness or anything else. God doesn't expect you to ignore it, but he doesn't expect you to pretend it doesn't exist either. You can't repress it. And here, doing something that only God can do, you have to face it and release it, and you cannot release it until you face it. It happened. It did happen. It was worse than your memory remembers. It did happen. Face it. And then work with God to release it. Now, the truth is, one of the reasons we can have a higher quality of life is because everybody carries this stuff forward into their current relationships. But as we face them and release them, as we get rid of it instead of repeating it, as we delete it, our life becomes freer and freer and freer. Our relationship to God becomes closer and more fun. Look, guys, I know sometimes I sound serious. Nobody who works for me takes that for serious. But anyways, are you afraid of me? Oh, shoot. Your relationship to God should be fun. What do you do when a child is afraid of his father? God doesn't want that relationship with you. He wants to go out fishing with you. What a great idea. He wants to go to NASCAR races with you. He wants to have a... No, I'm not suspicious, but I did drink coffee out of the 24 cup again this Sunday. He wants that quality relationship. We're going to have a word with God right now. And this is a chance. Quite often, you're aware of this. You come to stand before God, and you got something standing in your way. And it comes to mind, this morning is your morning. I don't know what it is, but God is saying, I see it, you see it, release it. Let it go. Give it to me. Don't repeat it, delete it. Now, that's easier said than done, and you may have to do it a few times. Now, on the small group stuff, we talk about the difference between forgiveness, which is the past, reconciliation, which is the present, and trust, which is the future. And this subject's a lot more complicated than I'm making it this morning. But part of the process is acknowledging it, facing it, it happened, and then working with God to release it. Would you stand with me? I'm going to have the ushers come and